Welcome to Face the Tribune with the legendary Rolando Moraz. I'm your co-host, Kristin Garcia, and we have a special guest on today, Michelle Ravell, and we're going to be talking about the Kristin Lobato case. And with that, Rolando, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing fine. I'm great, and I'm very pleased to have Michelle here with me. We've been talking on the phone for at least that I know years, and never met in person. Even today, she walked into my office and said, "Who are you?" You know. But as soon as she opened her mouth, I knew it was her.
Excellent.
Because we talk in the phone, and you talked to Pelly too, right? In the phone, you emailed with her.
Yeah, I think I mostly emailed with
Yeah.
her.
Well, welcome to Face the Tribune.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for what you've been doing for Kristin Lobato, because from day one, I thought that her case was a miscarriage of justice. And she's been abused by the system so badly that it's embarrassing that the system, the court system, can be so unfair and so injustice with anybody, especially with this young lady. They didn't give her a break whatsoever in any way or shape. Am I right or wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Honestly, I just keep wondering exactly how long it's going to take for them to admit they made a mistake. It is so obvious to everyone, and we have a lot of supporters who are retired attorneys and people from the legal field. The only people who say she's guilty work at our DA's office.
At the DA's office?
That's right. That's correct. They have to know they made a mistake. They have to, at some point or another. I'm not just an advocate for them. I'm also a citizen of Las Vegas, and I'm a taxpayer. I want to know when they're going to admit that they made a mistake and do what they need to do to make it right.
Well, let me tell you, I'm very cynical when it comes to the judicial system in Las Vegas. First of all, because I've been a victim of the system. So that's more or less how the Las Vegas Tribune was born. I was retired already. I used to publish different publications during my years in Las Vegas, from a Spanish newspaper to entertainment newspaper with the late Ralph Petillo. And I believe that the system in Las Vegas is completely in disarray. You know, it's only a one-way street, you know, and it should not be that way. So, to me, the way I learned about Kristin Lobato, it was something that caught my attention. And from day one, she must have pissed somebody off. She must have upset somebody. I don't know if it was the cops or the homicide detective or the district attorney. She must have, because the things that I have seen in her case, Michelle, I understand. I'm not there all the time, but I got my little sources in the courthouse, and they give me stuff. I was told that she was not allowed to tell the jurors that she was not in Las Vegas. Is that true or not?
Well, it's sort of interesting and very telling because, and as I've said before, jurors can't make an intelligent, informed decision if they're not in possession of all the facts.
Right.
And the district attorneys and the judge, who served, in my estimation, as just a third prosecutor in the courtroom,
Right.
made sure that they were able to withhold evidence from the jurors that proved that she was in Panaca, Nevada, when he was murdered, and pretty much throughout that whole entire day. If I had been a juror, I would have wondered why it was that this was withheld from me. That's not justice. And, you know, the district attorneys, whether they be the prosecuting attorneys, their job, what we task them with is to seek justice, not get convictions. How can you be seeking justice if you're hiding the truth?
Yeah.
And that's what they did in her trial. They, in both trials, they called it hearsay when people wanted to say that she told them about this attack on her prior to this man being murdered. That was hearsay. But a woman who was a probation officer in Lincoln County, Laura Johnson, never spoke to Blaze, never spoke to Kristin, never spoke to anyone directly, but she was allowed to testify as to what she knew. Now that's not even hearsay, that's double hearsay. Because she heard it from someone else. But the judge allowed that in a courtroom, but wouldn't allow these people to testify that she had told them about her being attacked long before this man was murdered. So how's that justice? How's that allowed in a courtroom? How do you, as a juror, make an informed decision? You can't. You don't have all the facts.
Well, that's what Chris always said, you know, you need to have all the facts in order to be able to judge something. And the jurors are almost like a judge. They made the decision. They are the ones that, you know, how long did the jury deliberate? You remember that?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how long, but I remember it was the following morning before they came to their decision. So I don't think that they deliberated all night long, but I know that we were across the street from the courthouse until about 2 o'clock in the morning.
And they were still there?
On the last day of trial, and they were still there. And then they decided that, you know, they were going to go home and finish deliberating.
What, the jury secluded?
I don't know. I have no way of knowing that.
Well, yeah, they had to say it in court.
Then they weren't.
Oh.
So it took them less than a day to make their decision?
Yes. In the second trial. In the second trial. In the first trial, I think it was a little bit longer, but again, you know, you can't make a decision if you're not in possession of all the facts.
You've been following this trial almost from the beginning, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you, do you think those two ladies from San Francisco, I forgot their names now.
Sherry and Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah. You think they were put on hold by the local attorney?
Yes.
Because
yes,
I think they are, I know them personally, I have lunch with them, and they really believe that Kristin was innocent.
So does David Sheep. So did Phil Cohn. Everyone believes she's innocent. Everyone knows she's innocent. It's not even a belief.
But they could not prove it in court.
But you can't prove it in court. If you can't prove it in court, and, you know, during both trials, the DA's made up this concocted story of how things happened.
Okay, but my question was, do you think they were put a break on it so they cannot really fully defend her?
I don't know. That would have been a decision made
by David.
By David. I know he was a lead attorney, and I know that they followed his lead. So whatever motions or whatever they wanted to file with the court prior to trial or whatever, David had to approve them first. So yeah. I don't know. I would assume so.
Yeah, I think so, because I saw him in action, and he didn't have the belief that she was innocent, or maybe he didn't believe her, or he was told not because he's a very intelligent man.
He is a very intelligent man.
He's a very intelligent.
And I absolutely believe that he knows that she's innocent.
Yeah, but his boss is a political figure,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's all about politics these days.
Yeah.
What was some of the main, Rolando had to refresh me about this case. What was some of the main evidence that the DA had against her? What did they base their case on? What was their strongest evidence?
They didn't have any.
they didn't have any. That's what I've been
That's
writing.
why they made up this whole scenario in court. And you have to understand, this scenario is so illogical and so unbelievable. It's inconceivable that you would, because the only time they had was in the middle of the night when everyone is asleep, because then you have no alibi witness. So they say, okay, here's what happened. She decided in the middle of the night that she wanted drugs, and her drug at that time of choice, what she was cleaning out of her body and withdrawing from, was meth. So instead of driving around the corner in Panaca where she could get those drugs, she got in her car and drove 365 miles from Panaca, Nevada, and I'm sorry. So she drives 170 miles this way from Panaca, Nevada, through the downtown area where you can buy drugs on any street corner, and we all know
Oh,
this.
really? In Panaca?
All the way.
Really?
No, here in Las Vegas. So,
yeah.
she drives from Panaca through the downtown area, all the way to the west side of town to buy drugs, to buy meth from a guy who lives in a trash enclosure that she doesn't know and has never met, and she doesn't know he lives there, and he doesn't even do meth. He was a crack cocaine user.
Wow.
Now, is this like the most illogical,
I don't know
unreasonable?
anybody who wants to use drugs is going to drive that far to get some drugs, and they can get drugs in their own town.
365 miles to Panaca?
And they're certainly not going to pass by downtown Fremont to go 20 people down there.
And goes to buy drugs in a trash enclosure from a guy they don't know,
Yeah.
they've never met,
Yeah.
and he doesn't even do the kind of drugs they do.
Yeah.
What? How ridiculous is this? Could you believe that story?
No, I don't.
Well, 12 jurors did. Twice. Because they had no other story. They had nothing else.
But I also don't believe the 12 jurors really saw that way.
And
I
then,
believe that there must be one or two planted in there. This is my, what did Gillespie call me? Conspiracy theory mentality. You know, everything I see is conspiracy. I believe that, because let me tell you, it is my experience that the district attorney, the prosecutor in a case, control the jury. They always manipulate the jury the way they want it to. So, but then I've seen other cases where they plant people in the jury, and with two people, one person in the jury, they can go, oh no, this is the way, oh no, that's the way. Most people in the jury are normal, average citizens that don't have any experience with the legal system. And then, oh yeah, oh maybe, and then that's how those things happen.
yeah, I mean, I understand. I don't know, and I don't have any proof to even make those allegations or even a thought to make. But, you know, here you're in a courtroom and you have the prosecutors who are coming up with this story. Whether or not it's believable or not, at least they have a story. And then you have her attorneys who are saying she wasn't there and she didn't do it. And then we have, you know, hours and hours and hours of testimony about phenolphthalein and luminol when it was proven that anything they found in their car, if it was blood, it wasn't human blood, okay? But when you have all these hours of testimony about phenolphthalein and luminol, as a juror, I would have thought, I must have missed something because they keep talking about this. So I must have missed something where they said that there was actually something important about this testing. But then you've got these prosecutors who have just invented the story. So in other words, they're lying because they have no proof that it happened their way. So they're standing in a courtroom and they're making up a story and they're lying. And then, you know from the articles that have been in the Las Vegas Tribune, every time these folks get into court, every time the DA goes to court, even when they went in front of the Nevada Supreme Court, they lied. They did not tell the truth. So here you've got a defendant and she's telling the truth. And you've got the prosecutors and the DAs who are lying.
The guy who she was supposedly went to buy drugs from, did they subpoena him? Did he testify?
No, he's dead.
He's dead.
What happened?
That's the one that they said that she killed.
Oh, okay.
And that's the
Right.
one that they accused her of killing because supposedly he has raped her, right? That's what it was?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
She was attacked at a different location. Some guy tried to.
At a different time.
Some guy tried to sexually assault her. That happened Memorial Day weekend. And she defended herself. She had a knife in her back pocket. She pulled out her back pocket. She slashed it whatever she could. The guy was laying on the ground crying. She ran off, got in her car, end of story. Right? This guy shows up 6 weeks later, dead, in a trash enclosure with his penis missing. So, because she says she tried to cut his penis because he was on top of her, the police hear the words penis, black man, smelly, and a knife,
Right, put it together.
and they put these two things together that have nothing to do with each other.
Wow.
Different side of town. She was attacked on Boulder Highway. He was found on the west side of town, behind what used to be the Nevada State Bank, in the trash enclosure. But because she said she tried to cut his penis and this guy had his penis cut off, she did it. And that's the whole thing right there. So this detective decides that because these words are all the same, it has to be the same incident, regardless of everything that she talks about happening in May actually happened. You know, people are saying, oh yeah, she left her car at my house, I saw her here. All these people in Panaca are saying, yeah, she told me about this guy trying to attack her long before this guy had been murdered. Now who does that? Who says, I'm going to make up this story and then I'm going to go kill somebody?
What was her record like?
She had no record.
She had no record.
She was homeless, right?
No, she was homeless sort of when she graduated from high school in Lincoln County. She came down here. She got in with the wrong group of people. She got into drugs. She just made a mess of her life.
Right.
So, right before the July 4th holiday, she packs everything back in her car, drives back home, says, I gotta go
Clean
home.
up.
I gotta clean up. I gotta get out of this. I gotta change my life. Then this guy shows up murdered, and suddenly she's arrested.
Did anybody from Panaca testify in the court? I was told that the prosecutor didn't allow them to testify.
They were allowed to testify. They weren't allowed to testify as to when she told them about this incident happening to her. There were people from Panaca who testified. Dixie Tankin, who was the woman who, the teacher who she had gone to talk to about this attack.
That's the one
She
I know.
testified. A couple of her friends testified, but they weren't allowed to testify as to when she told them about this, because that was hearsay.
There was a police incident report, though, the first time that she was attacked, right?
No.
There was not.
There was none. She did not report it. She had reported one previously in her life and been treated like most women are.
Yeah.
And so when this happened, she just said, I'm not going to bother with all that because it doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is get you embarrassed and vilified.
And she was what, 17, 18 years old?
Yeah, she was 18 years old. So they come and arrest her. And then they invent this story about how it all happened. And the interesting thing is they said during trial that this man's body laid in this trash enclosure all day long because she left there in the middle of the night and she drove down here and then she killed this guy and she got back home before, morning time, before anybody got up for work or whatever. So in other words, she made this 3-hour round trip in like 2.5 hours. And so here's all this stuff happening, but there's still no time of death for this guy. So the DA say, okay, so he laid in that trash enclosure all day long until his body was discovered at 10:30 at night by a homeless guy who was dumpster diving. Well, Hans, in his infinite wisdom, when he started doing the investigation and he got the entomologists to take a look at the autopsy photos and the crime scene photos, et cetera, and they said, oh no, his body could not have lain in that trash enclosure all day long because there would have been blowflies and cockroach eggs and fly larvae, et cetera, on his body, and there was nothing. So they said he had to have died after 8 o'clock at night because the sun had set by then and blowflies don't fly at night. So he dies after 8 o'clock, his body's discovered at 10:30. Well, during both trials, the state had already conceded that she was in Panaca from about 11:30 a.m. through that day. And the Nevada Supreme Court put that in their ruling, their recent ruling from November. They said, okay, since the state has already conceded that she was in Panaca from 11:30 a.m. through the rest of that day, and if this entomology evidence is correct, which these are 3 of the most world-renowned entomologists, and they're not going to lie. They're not going to destroy their credibility for nothing because they all did their reports pro bono. Everyone did their reports pro bono. So they said, okay, if the Nevada Supreme Court said this is how it happened and he died after 8 o'clock, and the state has already conceded that she was in Panaca at that time, we need this evidence. We need an evidentiary hearing. We need for the DAs to be able to cross-examine these entomology experts and see if they can destroy their credibility, is really pretty much what it is. But you can't destroy their credibility.
Did they find a weapon on her?
Did they find a weapon
on
on her?
Yeah.
No.
They didn't find the knife?
No.
Did they find any blood evidence or anything?
No. And everything that they have tested.
Wait a minute. They didn't find the
murder weapon. That's big.
murder weapon?
That's big.
No.
That's big. There's no way they should be able to get a conviction without that.
There was any of her fingerprints in the scene?
No.
Wow. Rolando, who did she piss off? She
Everybody.
pissed somebody off.
Every piece of evidence that has been tested at the crime scene comes back an unknown male and or the victims. There is nothing that ties her to this crime. And we know that she was 170 miles away.
Well, I'm
So
glad
how do you get convicted of a crime when you are 170 miles away? Well, I don't know if she made somebody angry. I have no idea. Personally, I think it was just convenience. I think they had a crime and they needed to convict someone, anyone, and because there were a couple of words in similarity, they chose her. I can't honestly think, I know her as a person, and she's not the kind of person that would run around making people angry. And she wasn't anybody important.
You know her from after the incident, right?
Yes, but interestingly enough, You know, and then this is, as far as I'm concerned, a case where honestly the police just didn't do their job. They did not investigate this case. A week before he was murdered, he raped a woman that lived less than 100 yards away.
I remember that fact.
And he had slapped this woman in front of her friends, her Hispanic friends, and they took him on the side and said, listen, you don't treat women that way. Don't treat our friend this way. And then he went back later that evening and raped her. Now, they lived right there, too. So they had motive, and they had opportunity. And Kristin was 170 miles away. But the other interesting aspect about this case, which still baffles me, is that he had the phone number of a police detective written in his pocket twice.
The
And
murder
two different.
The
Murder victim. So we could surmise that he was a police informant.
Do you remember what was the name of the
There was no name. There was no name. There was just a D and a name, and a phone number, and it was written on two different pieces
That's
of
what
paper.
detectives do when they tell you to call them with some information. So he was a CI probably.
And
he was a snitch.
So who knows if he didn't snitch on the wrong person?
Yeah.
That's always a possibility too. I don't know. It's not. You know, I honestly, I hate to say this, but it's not my job to solve their crime for them.
Sure.
My job is, as far as I'm concerned, to show people that you can be convicted of a crime when you're 170 miles away. And everybody needs to be afraid. Everybody needs to be very afraid. And the people at the DA's office are just, you know, circling the wagons. And they're not willing to admit they made a mistake. And this is a person's life. There is a human being, a living, breathing human being attached to your mistake.
What's amazing to me is we've had a couple of people on, including the DA, and it's like when Rolando brings his case up, you don't get far with it, do you? It's like nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to
They
touch
do
it.
not want to talk about it.
No, Steve Wilson was here.
Yes, he was here.
He was sitting right there.
Right
where you're sitting.
Well, you know, he has told Cindy Lindbergh from Fox 5 News, don't ask me about that case again. I'm not talking about
Oh
that
no,
case.
he didn't say that to me. He didn't.
That's what he
said,
told
you
her.
can ask
She
me
even
anything you
posted
want.
that. She even posted that on Facebook.
He didn't answer it, did he?
She even posted that on Facebook that they won't talk to anyone about this case. And as I said, interestingly enough, the only people who think she's guilty
It's the prosecutors.
are people who work for the DA's office.
Yeah.
We have one of our supporters is a retired attorney from Washington, D.C. And he said when he retired, he decided to look into all these wrongful conviction cases, and he wanted to find the one case that he could have just as easily committed as the person. And he said, this was the case I picked because anyone could have committed this crime.
What do you think her chances are of getting this overturned, realistically?
Well, we now have the Innocence Project from New York, who's working on our case, and David Chesnoff.
What's the name of that lawyer?
David Chesnoff.
No, the one in the Innocent Project.
Oh, Vereshek.
Vereshek.
Yes. And they're just as convinced that she's innocent. Normally, and up until recently, the Innocence Project didn't take cases where it wasn't a DNA case. It could be proven by DNA. They have now started taking, and hers is one of the first cases where DNA is not really a factor. I mean, it is to some degree. There's still 13 pieces of evidence that need to be tested that could point to the real killer. These would be things that the killer touched, like the plastic that was tucked around his body and the waistband of his pants. There were also footprints, not in blood, on a piece of cardboard that was found in the trash enclosure. And so the same footprints going in like oil, coming out in blood. that are, of course, netters. They're a size, I believe, 9 or 10 men's shoe. So, I mean, there's lots of evidence that could be tested to find the real killer. But then that's going to point away from this person that they have in prison for something that she did not do. And she has spent almost 16 years in prison for something she did not do. Someone with no criminal records.
You talk to her on the phone or you visit her?
Well,
How is her demeanor? How is she cope with this injustice?
I don't know how she copes with it, quite honestly. She is an amazing, compassionate, kind person. And it's interesting because we have a Facebook group out there for her, and a lot of people join after they've been in prison. And they see, this group out there for her, and they talk about how wonderful she is and how kind she is. Now, she's not anybody's fool. She won't, she doesn't let people take advantage of her. But
what about
to have gone through this for all these years and to still have the capacity to have compassion for your fellow man or your fellow inmate, as it may be, I find extraordinary.
Yeah. Yes.
She's not bitter. She's not hateful. She just wants her name clear.
Do you know how the staff at the prison feel about her? You never talk to any of those people over there?
No, they don't encourage you to speak with them. And, I mean, from the things that she's told me, that there are some that are just jerks, and then there are others that are...
You find that anywhere.
Yeah.
Outside and inside the prison system.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's exactly it.
They're all human beings, so they all going to have different opinions. And some people have the tendency to believe that they know better than anybody else. And that can happen anywhere, in the system and in no system.
Certainly.
But I cannot comprehend how can still so much silent. Because I don't see, with the exception of Cindy on Fox 5, and now that thing that happened now with George Knapp, you said that you've been in George Knapp TV show, right?
Yeah, well, he interviewed me after the last court appearance
at the
courthouse. We actually, for the first time, got as far as I'm concerned, a decent,
cover,
a good article from the Review Journal that wasn't just trying to sensationalize it. For years I've had this difficulty understanding why a local journalist, up until we got Cindy Lundeberg, didn't want to investigate this. This is huge because this doesn't just, it's not just about her case. We all live in this city. And we want to know that the right people are in prison, the people who committed a crime. And we want to know if our elected officials are doing a good job. We pay them to do a job. It would make sense to me, and as I said, as a citizen and a voter, I would want to know if they weren't doing a good job.
Michelle, how did I didn't know Kristin. What was your relationship with her?
I actually didn't know her until after she was arrested.
Okay.
So, and, quite honestly, I had not had, much interaction with the criminal justice system prior to that, and I just naturally assumed that when she was arrested that, there was some reason why she was being arrested. But here I am 15 years later going...
Do you live here in Vegas?
I live here in Vegas. It's just unconscionable, I think, that the DA's office, that the prosecutors are okay with throwing away a life. Because that's what they've done. They can't ever give her back what they've taken from her.
No, they don't.
Are her
They
parents
don't.
alive?
Huh?
Yes, and they live in Southern California. Now, they used to, of course, live in Panaca.
But have they been involved in the case?
They haven't been involved in the case to the same degree I have. They still, visit her and speak with her and that kind of thing. But, so they're still involved in her life, of course. But, I mean, I am not the kind of person who can see something like this in front of me and not speak out.
Absolutely.
It's not, to me, it's just inhumane.
Yeah, that's the way I feel.
I mean, we're all in this thing called life together. And when you see something that's unjust, you can't be silent. You have to speak out.
Yeah. I think that, like you said, I think that it's just convenient for them. I think she was somebody they could pin this on. And the one thing about it is that when you get in a situation like this, you had better know some important people. And that's why I asked about the parents, because, if your parents aren't involved in your life and they don't fight for you and speak up for you, this can happen a lot of times, You know what I'm saying? I know that you said the parents live in Southern California, but, I wanted to know that's their daughter, and I don't know what the situation was. We've all had struggles in our life, and, she had struggles with drugs, and I just wonder how involved they were in her life when this was going on, when this happened.
Well, they were very involved. Unfortunately, when they realized that the police had the wrong person, because all along, no one told them what day this guy was found murdered. So when they finally read it in the newspaper, her dad called the police detective and said, "You have the wrong person, because my daughter was here then."
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh no, I have the right person," and hung up the phone. Completely disregarded. And here's another thing. In her taped statement, they, first they talk to her first, and then they start taping her statement because they want to know how they're going to get out of her what they want to hear on the tape. So at the end of the tape statement, she says, "But this was already over a month ago."
Mm-hmm.
And they shut the tape off, click, and arrested her and took her to jail. They didn't say, "What do you mean this is over a month ago? This guy just died a couple weeks ago." Nothing. They just said, "Click, you're going to jail."
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's just horrible. Just denial of letting all the proof come out. If you're a jury sitting there and how bad must they feel? Because they weren't allowed to get all the evidence. I would feel horrible if I convicted her.
And then her stepmom is going around town going, "Didn't you see her on such and such a date? And didn't you see her on such and such a date?" So during trial, when she's testifying at trial, that she saw her there, they're trying to make it out like she was trying to tell witnesses what to say. Like she was trying to influence witnesses. Instead of her doing what any normal mother would do.
Absolutely.
Which is try and get the facts and try and see who they had for alibi witness. They made it out like she was trying to do something, unsavory or tell witnesses what to say.
Wow.
Well, at that point, wouldn't you be thinking, well, maybe I need to shut up because whatever I'm trying to do to help is just making it worse.
Right.
So, at some point or another, I sort of jumped in and said, well, I didn't know her and I don't have these issues. So I'm going to see what I can figure out.
So who all have you talked to about the case? How far have you taken it?
What do you mean, how far?
Have you talked to the DA? Have you talked to?
Her attorney and retired FBI agent Steve Moore, who was very worked very hard on the Amanda Knox case. They went to visit the DAs about her case.
Okay.
Because they wanted to give them an opportunity to do the right thing. And they just played, the DAs just played with them, well, let's see what kind of deal we can make with you. Well, what happens if she gets out in 6 months on parole, or blah, blah, blah. And her attorney said, well, that would be wonderful, but her name still needs to be cleared because she didn't do this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So then that becomes end of conversation.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just crazy.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. So I do have the opportunity of meeting Kristin in the second trial with Sarah and Cherry, and I had a very, very good impression of her. That's the only time I have talked to her. But most people that know her, they point out her qualities and the kind of person that she is for being that young and being in that position. Not too many people can cope with injustice. Not too many people can cope with that injustice. Some people react, everybody reacts different, but she has been able to keep her serenity, I would say. Don't you think? You probably know a little bit more than her.
Yes, to absolutely, to some degree.
Yeah.
I'm like constantly amazed that she's, I mean, I think I would have gone Looney Tunes by now if it had been me.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
I have to tell you, I mean, I'm not even in prison with her, but there have been months where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would be saying, what didn't I do that I should have done? Who didn't I talk to that I should have talked to? Why is this happening? What can I do to change it? Why can't I have any impact on this?
But wait a minute, don't be so hard on yourself. You don't think you have been instrumental in helping her mentally? I got the feeling that you have done more than many people have done. Maybe people that had more length of time in her life. I got the feeling that you are a very, I think she's lucky to have you on her side.
I consider myself her emotional support person.
I think so.
That's huge.
And I realize that is a very important job, and I have no problem whatsoever filling that role.
How did you met her? Well, go ahead, finish
The problem that I have with this is, why does it take so long for the system to recognize a mistake? Why do the courts drag their feet? It took over 2 years for the Nevada Supreme Court to rule. In that 2 years, this person, this living, breathing human being, is being tortured every day.
Yeah, well, let me tell you my philosophy on that. And I can be wrong, but I've never been wrong before, you know.
That's as I'm going.
Let me tell you what I think. First of all, I believe that now the system works in strange ways. You know, they looking to find somebody to be blamed for this crime. Now, the person, they didn't expect a young girl that have no meanings and don't have any kind of work or, you know, a job or anything, was going to fight like she has been fighting. They didn't expect that from her. They figured they cleaned the system, you know, one less thing, and unfortunately for them, and luckily for Kristin, is then she's a fighter.
Yeah.
She's a fighter, and I think that comes when you are sure that you are innocent.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
gives you that.
I mean, before the first trial, they offered her a 3-year plea deal.
No.
Take these 3 years and admit you're guilty. And she said to me, you know, we have a private conversation about this, and she said, I cannot get in front of that judge and lie. And I would have to lie to take that deal. I would have to say I did this. And I can't lie. To her, honesty is like the most important quality.
Yeah. And also, it is not only that, it's also then by you accepting that deal, you are expect to admit to that crime. You know,
Yeah,
and I
she
tell
just
you, a lot
simply
of people have
won't do
mixed feelings and opinions on the O.J. Simpson trial. And but O.J. Simpson was offering 10 months in prison, 10.5 months,
Jeez.
and he said no.
Yeah, because
Because
you know,
people believe
when
in the system. People believe that still justice can be obtained in the court of law.
Do you think he's
And
kicking himself now, Rolando?
I haven't talked to him in a long, long time.
I would say more than likely he
Oh
was.
my.
But, you know, and she and I have had that conversation. She's like, you know, I'd been out a long time ago if I would have taken that deal. But
You know,
I just
and,
couldn't stand there and lie. I couldn't stand there and lie to the judge. And, you know, that's a tough soapbox to stand on. Because she suffers every day. Because she has that innate need to tell the truth.
Okay, but now let me finish my thesis, my
Yes.
theory on that. They found that now, by giving up to her, they probably looking at a lawsuit for false imprisonment, for interfering with justice. They are interfering with it's almost like kidnapping.
It is kidnapping. But,
It is.
I mean,
Because
I don't even want to, like, that's so far
so
in the
they
future.
are afraid. It's the same
I'm
thing,
glad that they're afraid.
Michelle. It's the same thing that happened with Jessica Williams. You never met Jessica Williams.
No, I never met
I
her.
had the pleasure and the honor of meeting her. I don't believe in people drive. Unfortunately for me, I don't drink and I don't do drugs, but I don't drive under any kind of influence. I don't believe it should be that way. But my thing is, I went to see Jessica Williams as a favor to somebody. I said, look, this woman is being railroaded. The only problem with Jessica Williams is that she was railroaded only to exempt the county from the responsibility of having those kids. In my opinion, those kids were there because they committed a crime. So they were not saints. They were not good little boys.
They were not blameless.
Right. But the county should have never put them in the
jeopardy.
freeway.
That's right. The county put them in jeopardy. And so because the county didn't want to own up to their mistake, Jessica Williams became the scapegoat.
Yeah,
and
that's all it is.
What kind of person, what kind of people, are these the kind of people we want running our government? The kind of people who think that people are throwaways, that we don't care.
And let me tell you, for what I seen about the Jessica Williams case, the highway patrol asked her, do you have any drugs in the car? And she said, I got marijuana in the van. He said to her, go get it. If she would have been impaired, he would have not asked her, go to the van, because, you know, when you got accidents like those, you know, you park the car almost 2 blocks away, you know, and everybody was scattered all over, you know.
That case still bothers me. I'm sorry, that one still bothers
and
me.
it was about money.
She was tired.
Huh?
She was tired, and I defy any person who drives to say they have never driven when they were tired.
I fall asleep driving. I've done it.
It happened. And we've all driven when we're tired. She was not impaired. She was tired.
She was not impaired.
What about in the case, the Kristin Lobato case? What about phone records? if she was, I mean, everybody, if they were going to cop, they're going to make a phone call first. What were the phone records? Any phone records at all about her calling the guy before she drove 365 miles to come here?
She probably didn't even have a cell phone.
I don't,
House phone? I mean, it was,
she,
they could subpoena the phone records.
there were no phone records where she called
No.
him. I don't know that he had a cell phone. I have
And,
no idea.
And he was homeless, so he didn't have a telephone at home.
So what is their proof that she was there?
They
What's
don't
their proof?
have any.
That's wow.
They
That's
don't
incredible that
have
a jury will
any.
convict her on little or no evidence. That's just
Not, it's not little or no. None. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing.
so like you said, Ravell, it's almost like they got to the jury or got to somebody on the jury. Had to.
And you know, let me tell you something else. The embarrassment, they are delaying the embarrassment
That's
because
exactly it.
they are going to have to explain to the people of Las Vegas. I don't even consider the media because the media will not ask them those type of questions. The media doesn't want to upset the power that be. That's unfortunately
No.
that's the way it is in this town.
But at some point,
They're going to have to explain themselves.
that's right.
Absolutely.
At some point, the general public is going to get wind of the truth. Probably after this evidentiary hearing, when she's exonerated. And then people are going to start asking the DA's office questions. How could you do this? Where's the corroborating evidence? This is not what I hired you to do. I did not hire you to take innocent people who are indigent and can't afford proper legal representation and throw them in prison. And you know, there's another issue that nobody's talking about here. So whoever committed this crime is probably still on the streets.
And laughing.
I don't care if they're laughing. I just don't want them living next door to me.
How long, Orlando, has D.A. Wolfson been in office?
About 5 years, probably.
So 5
He,
years.
he got nothing to do with the case directly from the beginning. The
Right.
culprit in here is David Rogers and Kephart, Bill
And to
Kephart.
Giacomo.
But it'll have to go through him now, though, right here.
Yes, because he's had 5 years since he took office. He's had 5 years.
I
And
think
we've
he's
given
been there
him
5 years, isn't he?
we have plenty of opportunity. He's had plenty of opportunity to make this right. We have given him the
And
opportunity.
allow the DNA test to be taken. It won't cost the county or the state of Nevada a penny because Innocent Project, I think it was, offered to do the DNA test for free. And they declined. They said, it's no need for that now. It is need now because she's in prison. That's why.
It's not going to prove it wasn't her, but it will tell us
What do you mean it would
who
not
the
prove?
killer
It
is.
would not prove that it wasn't her?
You can't prove a negative.
But if her DNA is not there anywhere.
Yeah, I know. Her DNA isn't there anymore. Anything they've ever tested, there's nothing of hers there. There's no fingerprints. There's no
Oh,
hair.
I see what
There's
you
no
mean.
DNA.
They tested
What
the
they have
area
tested,
and her
she's-
DNA
is
test was
not
not
there.
there. Oh, I see. Well, maybe they got a
But-
point by saying
but
you're
there
not
are-
going to prove anything.
But there are still pieces of evidence that have DNA on them that would point to the real killer. And don't you want to know who the real killer was? Because I don't want that person living
Do you know
next
your name?
door to me. No.
No.
How would I know?
Well,
the name?
let me tell you my theory on that. Really, give me one minute, okay? Let me tell you, I think it's the boyfriend or the husband of the other lady that was supposed to be molested or abused by that person.
Oh, the woman that he raped.
Yeah.
It wasn't her boyfriend. It was, if anyone, it was either her Mexican friends who had told him to leave her alone, or it was
Well-
whoever he ratted on if he was an informant.
We've come to the end of our show today. We want to thank you so much for watching Face the Tribune. the legendary Rolando Barras. We're so blessed to have Michelle Ravell on our show today. We'll be up on YouTube in a couple of hours. Listen, we had Steve Wilson, the DA, in here. I met him. I'm a fan of him. I think he has a future in politics. Do the right thing. You've had this case now for 5 years. This girl has been sitting in prison for 15 and a half years. People like this and people like us here on the show, we're not going to stop until she has a fair day in trial. And I challenge the DA to do the right thing. And you have a chance to make a big saying about yourself. Overturn this case and let this lady free. She did not commit this murder. Thank you for watching. God bless America and God bless our troops.
Thank you, Michelle.